Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Here on this show, we spend 1 week highlighting an up-and-coming North American player. Throughout the week, we find out more about the player's history, their personality, and their playstyle over the course of 6 short episodes. On Monday, we'll interview the player and find out more about them. Tuesday through Thursday, we'll watch a game from each of the various matchups casted by your very own Fear Dragon. On Friday, we'll check out a generally awesome game with some sick play, and on Saturday, we'll kick it back with the player and have some wacky fun with some randomly selected events like handicap ladder matches, karaoke, and dance contests. Each episode aims to be about 20 to 30 minutes long, so you can learn more about the North American StarCraft 2 scene without interrupting your busy WCS schedule. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode of Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. And tonight on the show, we are going to be finishing up JonSnow week because right now we've all been watching Game of Thrones day in and day out. That's what we've been doing from Monday through Saturday. Either that or we've been watching a lot of StarCraft. Now, Jared, which one is it?
A little bit of StarCraft. Game of Thrones hasn't started yet. New season.
Ooh.
I wait for that.
Looking forward to that one, man. But, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. Once again, Jared, it's been an absolutely fantastic week. We've gotten to take a look at your actual interview. We've gotten to take a look at your actual games, you know, your ZVZ, your ZVT, your ZVP, and just an awesome game that was a ZVZ versus a Suppy. So, guys, if you haven't seen those, go ahead and check those out, of course. But, you know, until that point, you might as well just stick around because we're going to be doing a little bit of fun stuff. Today is Saturday, and Day 9 lied to every single one of you, okay? Day 9 is full of shit. You heard it here first. Monday is not the best day of the week. Saturday is. Everybody knows it, okay? And over here on Saturday, we're going to have a little bit of fun because Saturday is the true fun day. We're going to be doing a little bit of karaoke over here with JonSnow. JonSnow and I have already done our rehearsal singing concerts. We did it to a full group of nobody because that was where it was probably best left. Our voices are about as beautiful as a rock. You know, a rock screeching against your table, or maybe even a chalkboard. Oh God, my ears are cringing actually thinking about that. All right, Jared, you have to tell me, do you share a phobia with me, where when you imagine something screeching against a chalkboard and you just start shuddering?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I have
like memories.
Oh my God, I have a phobia of it, man. Like, if someone's brought that up during a StarCraft game, I would instantly just like drop 0 APM on the spot, man.
Oh.
So I'm gonna try to avoid thinking about that while we're singing this.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
But Jared, I mean, do you want to tell everybody what song has been chosen for you against your will?
The song we chose was the Rick Rolled song by
Rick Astley.
Rick Astley, that's the guy's name. Never Gonna Give You Up. It's a beautiful song. Beautiful lyrics.
Do you want to actually dedicate this song to anyone? Since we are going to be doing the karaoke in just a couple of seconds now.
Dedicate it to just the managers at Core. Justin and Malad. It's all because of them that I'm here, so it's great.
You are never going to give them up, man.
Never going to give them up.
That's some true heartfelt mentality. That's some true
never gonna desert them.
Team spirit, man. That's some team spirit. All right, well, hopefully Core Gaming is watching this right now because you're never gonna live this down. But let's go ahead and do this, man. Are you ready?
I'm born ready.
All right, guys. You guys gonna have to bear with us. We're gonna try and sync up the videos, and this is actually gonna be a duet. I am not gonna put Jared through this pure torture by himself. I will also subject myself to a little bit of it. So let's go ahead and do this, man. All right, we're going to get started on 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a take 2. You guys have just saw the cut, actually, because we completely botched the last one. We were actually singing so terribly that both of our microphones broke, and we had to go buy new ones. But we are back, and we are ready to do take number 2. Jared, are you ready for this?
I was born ready.
All right, let's do it on 3, 2, 1, play. Sing along at home, folks. When the strangers to love,
you know the rules, and so do I.
A full commitment's what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this from any other guy. I just wanna tell you how I'm feeling. Gotta make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna give you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Known each other for so long. Your heart's been aching, but you're too shy to say. You don't know what's going on. And you know the game, and we're gonna play it. And if you just ask me how I'm feeling, then tell me you see, never give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around, desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Is it you up? Never gonna let you down. Never gonna turn around and desert you and make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Jam out! Alright. Never gonna give. Never gonna give, never gonna give. Each other for so long. Your heart's been aching, but you're too shy to say. We both know what's going on. We know the game, and we're gonna play it. I just wanna tell you how I'm feeling. Gotta make you understand. You are never gonna let you down. Run around and desert you. Never gonna give you cry. Never say goodbye. Tell a lie and hurt you. Never gonna give you, let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna give you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Never gonna give you up. Oh God, the lyrics are gone, Jared! Jared! The lyrics are gone. Is it over? All right. That's a good place. That's a good place to be. All right, so well done, Jared, and fabulous job on that. We're gonna be saving that one.
I think I was a little bit ahead of you.
Yeah, I think that we were a little bit off, but I mean, to be honest, I was
trying to
Oh God, I was trying to pause it at certain points to try and keep us together, but I think then you were also doing a similar thing.
Yeah.
So then we just ended up negating each other out.
I tried pausing it at the beginning. I was like, I'm just gonna pause it, and then, oh my God.
That's what we call production failure, folks. But okay, yeah. Jared, with that being done, thank you so much for that, by the way. That takes a lot of guts to actually, and I will say, Jared, I did not completely have to 100% force him to do this. Like, he was willing, he was happy to do it, so big props to Jared over here, JonSnow, everybody. But with that being said, let's get to something that a lot of other people might feel a little bit more serious about. That's actually the games that you actually submitted to me to be casted. And let's just go straight in line. Over on Tuesday, you sent us a ZVZ, and that was against the Flash Wolves' Taiwanese player Slam. Now, tell us a little bit about that game. It was a crazy, crazy game with a lot of really small roach counterattacks constantly going on, and it looked like you were down in a lot of points in time, especially economically, but then like you were still just like pushing back and like not giving up. In fact, you were never giving up, one might say.
I was never gonna desert that game. That game was very, very intense, especially playing it. I was pretty nervous, and the counterattacks kept doing a lot of damage, and I couldn't really take advantage of my army that I thought was way superior, because I had roaches, hydras, and infestors, when he just had mainly pure roach. So every time I tried to move out, you just counterattack and I had to come back. And in the end, it was actually the upgrades which really, I think, allowed me to win, because he only
Mm-hmm.
had, I think, +1 the whole game.
Yeah.
So any engagements we really took were in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
Although he did a really good job of just avoiding my whole army, and I was just very frustrated and trying to
Yeah.
just keep trying to smash every counterattack that came by. But it was a very good game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was pretty impressed with my resilience in that game, just being able to stick in there, and
Mm-hmm.
in the end, I was able to win. I was really happy about that game.
Yeah, one other notable thing to me about that game was actually in the interview you talked about how you wish, especially in ZVZ, that there was maybe some changes to the infestor to make it a little bit easier transition into, right? And I noticed that you actually got, I think you got a couple of infestors out, and you were actually using the infestors against like the Mutalisk play. So, I
Yeah.
mean, what were your thoughts? Do you think that's something that you can actually viably do as long as you control really well, or
I
what?
think definitely. Once the mutas get in a really high number, you really need the infestors.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, my normal style is actually to go muta. I don't tend to go infestor off of layer tech immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little awkward playing that style. But I think infestors versus the kind of muta roach style is very good, because you just get to lock it down and you get to just do the damage, where it's an army that wants to scoot us around and not be able to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really good way to use infestors.
Huh, yeah, it's really interesting. Would you say that you actually enjoyed that style maybe more than the Mutal style, or you still kind of like feel
Uh,
more comfortable and enjoy the Mutal style more?
I really like the Mutalist style is a lot better versus passive players.
Mm-hmm.
But Slam was really aggressive, so the Infestor style actually turned out very good because they're a good
Mm.
defensive unit. They're kind of hard to use aggressively just because you have to get across the map, and then you have to use your energy there and then be able to retreat without dying.
Mm-hmm.
So versus that aggressive style, I think was a very good composition to use.
Got it. Well, cool. And let's move straight along. Then we also did a Zerg versus Terran, and that was against Eternity Gaming's Moto K. And actually, I didn't even mention this for the ZVZ, but the ZVZ was from the Challenger League qualifiers for WCS America, and as was this one. So, tell us a little bit more about that game versus Moto K. It was a ZVP. It was
ZVT.
or sorry, ZVT, and you ended up going for that Roach Zergling Baneling all in that you actually mentioned in the interview
Yes.
that you're notorious for.
Indeed, I am very notorious. A lot of Terrans have a lot of resentment towards me because of that all in. It's an extremely strong, powerful all in where you just get
JonSnow.
the roaches, the lings, and the banelings. They just crash through, and most Terrans default to the 3CC build, which is very greedy and economical, and it can't hold that all in very well
Mm-hmm.
unless you have very good control, or you can kind of anticipate it coming.
Mm-hmm.
So that all in, I just kind of did that game, got a good advantage early, and just it was pretty easy to close it out after that.
Got it. Yeah, I think that was a pretty straightforward game, but it really did show like the power of when you decide to get super duper aggressive on someone. That is something to be feared, especially if you're a Terran player going for that, as you said, like the fast 3 command center style.
Hmm.
But yeah, then let's just kind of move on into the next game, and that was actually a Zerg versus Protoss. This is the actual Zerg versus Protoss, unlike my
Yes.
misstep earlier on. And this was against Millennium's Adele Scott, who's a French player, really good player, has been around for a very long time, and you started off the game just being a little bit weird, a little bit different. You start off the game with a proxy hatchery to block his natural expansion. So what was that about?
Well, when a Protoss goes for the gateway expand, a lot of times they'll have a very delayed scout, and they also have a delayed
Mm-hmm.
zealot. So when you go 3 hatch before a pool and you put your third hatchery in their natural, they actually don't have a good answer to that because they can't be aggressive towards you in your main base.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, it's hard, they have to let the hatchery finish, and then the creep spreads, and that delays their base by a long time. So it's a very cool style. I've seen players do that in the Korean GSL, which was very, so I'm just kind of
Yeah.
copying from them. It's a very good style.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you're not concerned about maybe just like a transition to like a one base all in from there or something?
Well, if you follow it up with quick speed and you get your 2 queens out, you can drop
Mm-hmm.
some sort of spine crawler, and you should just be able to outproduce them off of your 2 bases, and you'll have probably a better economy as well because you should have been able to drone a little bit before they attack you.
Mm-hmm.
So then for that, you can crush a lot of 4 gates and 1 base DT. It's just not very effective.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that does make a lot of sense. What about Stargate play? Have you ever encountered someone who just kind of says like, "Screw it, you're taking my natural expansion, you can have it." Throws down a Stargate, just pumps out Void Rays or something.
Yep, Stargate play, it's pretty common. They'll either go Void Rays or Phoenix. especially when they try to take their natural as well, and they kind of want to transition into a macro game. But in that case, you can just really stick on to 2 bases and get a really high drone count because you don't have to make any lings or static defense besides the spore crawlers. So it's a very you can get a really good economy, and then later in the game we'll be able to outproduce them. So Stargate is probably a good answer, but I think it's still not the best answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually totally fair to say. And you know, moving into the later stages of the game, you also did something that I don't see. I've seen maybe like a couple of times, but not too often. It's you completely skipped out on roaches, and you threw down the Hydralisk Den, but you only made Zerglings and Hydralisks. That's like it's as if you were just saying like even though I think your Zerglings weren't as heavily upgraded as for the Carapace upgrade as your opponent's Zealots with the weapons upgrade, but you were using the Zerglings still to just tank the damage from your opponent's Zealots and everything, and you just stomped over Adele Scott after it got to like the 3-base play.
It's a much more modern style just to skip the roaches, especially when you know you have control early game. The Hydraling composition is just extremely potent and can just take out the Protosses before they get up to Colossus. So I kind of knew that he wasn't going to have Colossus for a while, so I just decided to stick to Hydraling and just kind of abuse that mobility that I had by getting the upgrades, the speed upgrades for both the units, and I was able to just really kind of use that to my advantage and get the win.
Yeah, you were even going for some like really cool concave setups, especially because I believe the map was Belshire Vestige, and you got some really sick engagements where you would come in from one side, like over by where the destructible rocks are on the third, but then you would also come in with another squadron of Hydralisks on the other side, moving in toward the natural expansion. You kind of try to set up for a little bit of a flanking position, and you did a lot of damage with that aggression. So I definitely have to say it worked out.
That map you have to really watch out for because there's a lot of ramps which are very tight, so they can force field off most of your army. So you want to spread it out so you can get multiple engagements, so where force fields aren't as effective. I need to have high sentry count, so I was really afraid of the force fields in that map.
Yeah, so I mean, is that like your normal ZVP style then, or is it more of that a map specific thing, or were you just kind of experimenting around, kind of with your like how your ZVZ you say you normally go for Mutalisk, but went for Infestors that game?
I think it's pretty normal style. Probably like at least in half my games, I'll go for the Hydralink composition, just because in most games, early game gateway aggression isn't really common, and they'll normally go Stargate. So the Hydralink composition really does well against that. And sometimes I will get the safety roaches, just based on who I'm playing and the builds I scout. But it's a pretty standard style, I think, for myself.
And do you think that kind of like idea of it does well against the Stargate play, is that like a meta within a meta? Because I know a lot of Protoss players have been opening up with Stargate because they're like, screw everything about I'm gonna do this finger. Screw everything about Mutalisks because Protoss players hate Mutalisks. So then you kind of say, well, I'm just gonna open up with Hydralisks then because Hydralisks deal with the Stargate units relatively well once you get up enough of them.
Yep, and it's the best when you can kill the Phoenix that initially come out, and then you can go Mutalisks anyway, and then Protoss get really angry. So that's always great.
Oh god, you're just making so many Protoss cry. But that was actually a really fun game to watch, so thank you for that one. But one of the games I enjoyed the most this week, and with good reason, is actually the awesome game of the week that you submitted. And that was a ZVZ, which normally, a lot of players or viewers actually will say, like, ZVZ, not the most fun matchup to watch, just Mutalisk versus Mutalisk, right? And it was Mutalisk versus Mutalisk. But this game was against Evil Genius's Suppy, and it was out of this world. I actually had the privilege of casting that with a Tempo StarCraft, and tell us about that game, because it was insane.
The game was a very intense game. It was just a pretty standard Muta v Muta, where I ended up getting the advantages in Lings, and I kind of lost the Muta battle, which normally is just you're done in the game, and it's a really crazy situation. So I had to just sit back and I had to make spore crawlers and just use my Zergling advantage to kill his economy, which kind of evened us out because he couldn't kill my bases because of the spores and how strong they are now. So I was able to do enough damage that kind of made it in my favor. Then in the end, I would have transitioned to Infestor, but he ended up leaving the game once he realized that he couldn't really combat the Infestor Spore Crawler Queen mix.
Yeah, I think also there were just so many Zergling run-bys on both sides, but especially from you. You were I feel like there was a constant stream of Zerglings entering his base. It was as if you had a hatchery inside of his base, just outputting Zerglings and attacking his stuff. Because at the very end of the game, I believe that he was actually down to like 4 drones or something. Like, and he tried to go in with a superior muta count, but the Spore Call, as you said, like worked out so well for you.
Yep, Suppy is an extremely great player, and I think he was also counterattacking with the less amount of lanes,
Yeah.
which is very difficult to deal with because he didn't necessarily need to make those counterattacks until later into the game. So he was always just really hurting my economy as well when I was trying to limit his, especially when I knew he had a better army. So I was really in a tough spot. So getting his worker count so low was really when I felt pretty confident in the game and I was able to win it. But until then, I was really scared.
Yeah, I do have to say also, like, it was a very positional based game in the sense that I remember you do some of those Zergling counterattacks, but you wouldn't just do it and, like, kind of throw them out there just to, like, try and do some damage. You would do things like you knew that your opponent, Suppy, had more Mutals than you, so you would counterattack his third that was over at the bottom side, and then you would come in with your Mutals after you saw his Mutals were attacking your Zerglings, and you sniped off his fourth expansion, which I remember, like, Tempo and I were just freaking out about how awesome that was.
Yeah, that was that's a very good tactic in ZVZ is just to force his mutas out of the way and then use your mutas to just do damage, especially when I couldn't take a muta versus muta engagement, so I had to get his mutas out of position. And I think that's just, it goes with all matchups, but the ZVZ, it's at such fast pace, you really have to capitalize on those movements.
So, I mean, a little bit of real talk here. Like, a lot of people, as even, I mean, you kind of even mentioned it yourself a little bit. Like, people say when you fall behind the muta count, you're dead. Like, you don't have a chances in the game. So, I mean, real talk. Do you feel like the only way you can come back in a ZVZ of muta versus muta is if your opponent messes up, or do you think that those things like saying I have a higher Zergling count, therefore I have these options to do these kind of like delay tactics or kind of multitasking operations that can bring you back into the game as like a consistent and viable thing that doesn't just rely on maybe opponent mistakes as much as people would think?
Yeah. I think if your opponent kind of knows everything that's going on, they can react much better. But when you have a better economy and a better kind of mineral-based army, you do have really good options to take, especially when you can limit their economy, then you can maybe get more mutas, you can transition into infestors. So there is some, skill involved on both sides. If he makes mistakes, it's much easier for you to take advantage of that and get back into the game. But I think it's definitely it goes both ways. It's not just luck that he messes up, but it's not just skill. You have to get a little bit of luck, or
Yeah.
else you're in a really tough spot.
I guess that kind of makes sense, and that's probably true to an extent for every matchup, right? Like, you can imagine, for me, one of the things that stings my heart the most in that respect is, like, say, Terran's trying to do drop play against a Protoss player, or even, like, say, a Zerg player, right? They could just get picked off. They could just run into the Mutalisks or something. But at the same time, like, they can still do a lot of damage with it, and not necessarily just because their opponent is, making mistakes, but, like, their entire army gets pulled out of position to defend against this giant army creeping up at the very front, right? So I think that's actually a really fair thing to say, and really cool to hear that you don't feel it's necessarily just all about Mutalisk counts win and everything else doesn't matter. Like, I know that's something that a lot of people in the community like to joke about, but
Yeah,
I think
the
that there's
ZVZ matchup is it's a little bit more deeper than what people see at the surface, which is a little bit of an issue because I think it's not like the worst matchup in the game. It can be interesting if people make it interesting and people know more about it.
Yeah. And hey man, I'm gonna be hitting up you about any ZVZ that like I don't understand or like whatever. I just want to understand better because you definitely have some great insight on the matchup and of course all the matchups. But thank you again. That is actually going to be covering all the games. So I mean, JonSnow, did you have any shoutouts that you wanted to do as we start to close up the show?
Sure, I'd like to shout out my stream and my Twitter. You can follow me at JonSnowSE2 on Twitter, and my Twitch channel is JonSnowSE2, or twitchtv.com/JonSnowSE2. You can watch me there. I'll be streaming, a few times a week, trying to get the viewers in. It's a little hard to find the best times, but I should have some free time soon. I'd also like to thank my team, Core Gaming, for supplying some gear and these new sweatshirts, which are really nice. And also just for letting me on the team. It's been a great time, and I hope that we can continue. I also like to thank you for the interview. It's been a really cool series. I liked it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Why don't you just go ahead and show people your shirt? Actually, you just need to like
Oh,
stand up or something. Cause yeah, there you go. There's the Core Gaming sweatshirt.
for gaming, and
That's awesome. Oh,
there's
there's something
my
on the
name on
back
the
too.
back. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I can see it.
To the move to your right. To your right.
Oh,
Uh, like, we saw
oh.
Jon Snow. We saw
Okay, you
Jon
saw it in a
Snow.
second.
All right. We saw it. Okay. So
Okay, that's good. That's all you need to see.
if you guys want to see more of Jon Snow or even more of his sweatshirt, please guys go ahead and check out his Twitch channel. He does awesome streams, and you can just learn more about Zerg if you go and ahead and watch him. And of course, I guarantee you guys are going to be seeing more of Jon Snow in the future. This guy is an amazing Zerg player. He, unfortunately, I hope this isn't pouring a little bit of salt in the wounds, but like you played in WCS Challenger League, and even though you didn't end up winning, you played an absolutely insane series versus Root Puck, and I think
A fun
everybody,
series.
you turned a lot of heads, man. You turned a lot of heads.
It's
Um,
nice.
yeah, I was a little bit sad that uh, I got all the replays for the week, and I got all the WCS Challenger League replays and everything. And then you played Puck like 2 days later after I had like done all the other stuff. I was like,
Oh,
this would have been amazing. But no,
that last game was very intense. I was a little
oh
disappointed I
man.
lost, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a really fun series. I was glad that I was able to make it really close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think the most important thing is you showed that you can actually compete at that level with a lot of those amazing players. Because I know a lot of people say like Root Puck is one of those players that like actually could be one of the top like 5 or so North American players. Like I was about to say one of the top 5 North American players in the world. It's like top North American
On North
player in the world.
Americas.
Yes. Just that added little emphasis. But Jon Snow, I know we're going to be seeing more of you, so I'm looking forward to maybe talking with you more in the future. But thank you again for coming on, and thank you everyone in the audience for tuning in. This has been the 4th week of Breaking Out, and now's a good time to announce who we're going to have on next week. Next week, we're actually going to be having on another person who has actually been in WCS America and was one of the initial invitees for Premier League. It is going to be Fnatic Gaming's Hello Kitty. And Hello Kitty has been around, is actually known as a little bit of a cheeser, so he's going to be addressing some of those issues actually in the interview. Hopefully you guys will decide to tune in for that. This is, of course, Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. It happens at, this entire week, it's actually been at 8:30 Pacific. Next week, we might be reverting back to the 9:30 or 9 o'clock Pacific time. It just seemed like it was working out weirdly enough for people a little bit more. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I might try another week of 8:30 just because I guess WCS in America finals have been going on and whatnot. So all kinds of crazy shenanigans going on. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please go ahead and give it a follow over here on twitch.tv/FearDragon64 or youtube.com/FearDragon64. But with that being said, we've been here for long enough. Take it easy and have a wonderful night, guys. See you on Monday.
Bye.